It is my pleasure to participate at the 54th annual meetings of the boards of governors of the African Development Bank and the 54th annual meeting of the African Development Fund here in Malabo, Republic of Equatorial Guinea. Let me start by extending my heartfelt gratitude to the government of the people of the Equatorial Guinea for warmly welcoming me and the hospitality extended to my delegation since our arrival. In addition, I would like to extend my profound gratitude to the AfDB President, Dr. Adesina, and his team for organizing the 2019 annual meetings under the theme Regional Integration for Africa's Economic Prosperity. Let me refer to the Zimbabwe situation. The new economic dispensation led by His Excellency President Emmerson Tambudza Mnangagwa is committed to promoting integration through the provision of an enabling environment, as well as being a member of a number of regional and continental bodies, such as SADC, such as COMESA, such as the African Union AU. Zimbabwe, through its short-term economic blueprint, the Transitional Stabilization Program, TSP, is developing strategies to promote its integration with regional and continental bodies by undertaking the following steps. The establishment of a one-stop shop, the Zimbabwe Investment Development Agency, ZIDA, accelerating the ease of and cost of doing business reforms, promotion of joint ventures in infrastructure projects, the implementation of special economic zones, streamlining regulations and policies affecting export processes and manufacturing in general, and supporting the activities of SMEs by promoting linkages with the rest of the business world and in particular Africa. Zimbabwe has also prioritized implementation of the SADC, COMESA and African Union integration strategies that promotes the development of shared infrastructure, among other initiatives. The government of Zimbabwe is prioritizing re-engagement with the international community to attract foreign direct investment under the dictum Zimbabwe is now open for business. The reforms being implemented by the government under the Transitional Stabilization Program of October 2018 to 2020 are beginning to show positive developments, as the twin deficit challenge of the fiscal and current account are coming under control. Government has started realizing a budget surplus, this being achieved through containing expenditures by reducing the wage bill and plugging revenue leakages through improving the Zimbabwe Revenue Authority, ZIMRA's tax management revenue system, and revenue enhancement measures such as the 2% intermediate money transfer tax, among others. Furthermore, the 2019 budget primarily targets macroeconomic and fiscal stabilization and implementation of the quick win flagship and high impact projects and programs, which will lay a solid foundation for private sector led growth. On the other hand, with regards to prices, fiscal consolidation measures reinforced with tight monetary stance together with liberalization of the exchange rate are containing inflationary pressures, which are expected to slow down in the third quarter of the year. However, the 2019 GDP growth rate is expected to be weighed down due to unfavorable El Nino-induced drought, the devastating cyclone Idai, foreign currency shortages, and constrained spending being imposed by fiscal reforms. In addition, challenges in fuel and electricity availability are also a factor weighing down economic performance. The 2019 annual meetings come at a time when Southern Africa, as you might be aware, is in the aftermath of the devastating tropical cyclone Idai that hit 3 countries, namely Malawi, Mozambique, and Zimbabwe. Cyclone Idai left a trail of devastation in its wake in the 3 countries where lives and livelihoods were lost and infrastructure was damaged, among others. In Zimbabwe, Cyclone Idai hit the 4 provinces of Manicaland, Masingo, Midlands, Mashonaland East, with the most affected areas being Chimanimani and Chipinge districts, where approximately 344 people lost their lives. On behalf of the government of Zimbabwe, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, and on my own behalf, I would like to acknowledge the support from the international community and also in particular the heartfelt condolences from the bank group extended by the President, Dr. Adesina, on his behalf and that of the bank group towards the victims of the devastating cyclone. The support from the various development partners, including the bank's swift response towards the disaster, is highly commendable and appreciated. To this end, the bank instituted a three-party multi-pronged disaster mitigation relief and construction effort to assist Zimbabwe, Mozambique and Malawi through the establishment of a special relief fund amounting to $400,000 for Zimbabwe, especially set aside for aid efforts in some West-affected areas, which will be administered by the UNICEF, setting up of an economic recovery funding by the bank's transitional support facility, the TSF, to help disperse $100 million this quarter to assist the three countries, and leading global efforts for the Bairo Regional Corridor reconstruction plan, given the vital importance of this critically needed economic route for Zimbabwe and its neighbors. Mention should also be made of the bank's participation at the Cyclone Idai Response Roundtable, co-hosted by the United Kingdom and Portugal on the sidelines of the IMF World Bank spring meetings in April 2019, which is well appreciated. Regional integration for Africa's economic prosperity. This year's theme, the regional integration for Africa's economic prosperity, resonates well with the thrust of the African Union to make Africa a borderless continent. Let's not forget that African regional integration was a dream of the continent's leaders, which gave impetus to the creation of the Organization of African Unity in 1963, the forerunner to the current African Union. The theme is also in tandem with the bank's high five priorities, of which one of them is Integrate Africa. To date, many regional groupings are characterized by uncoordinated initiatives, political conflicts, and low levels of intra-regional trade. Research by the African Development Bank shows that intra-Africa trade is the lowest of all global regions at approximately 15% as compared to 54% in North America, a free trade area, 70% within the European Union, and 60% in Asia. Integration is essential for Africa's development as it brings with it a lot of benefits to individual countries and the whole continent as a whole, in that it strengthens competitiveness and trading capacity, market expansion and upgrading of value chains, as integration particularly creates appropriate enabling environment for private sector development and lower transaction costs, lower investment risks and markets. It develops infrastructure programs in support of economic growth, development and regional integration. It provides a framework for coordinating policies and regulations. It develops strong public sector institutions and good governance, reduces social exclusion and develops an inclusive civil society. It promotes regional peace and security and political engagement among members. It builds environmental programs at the regional level, strengthens regional interaction with other regions of the world. It improves intra-trade connectivity and solidifies domestic reforms. Africa, therefore, must unite, and not simply to enhance the continent's weight in the global affairs, but to meet the very basic needs of its population. For if we build for ourselves, then others will come. Thus, it is pertinent to note that in grappling with challenges facing regional integration efforts in Africa, proponents for greater unity identify the following as prerequisites for success in integrating Africa. One, involving business groups, professionals and other sectors of society more actively in all integration issues. Two, achieving an appropriate balance between public, private economic initiatives, reconciling the sometimes conflicting interests of countries with diverse sizes, natural resources, and economic performances, and pursuing a pace of integration that is simultaneously ambitious and realistic, and rationalizing Africa's many different regional institutions in order to reduce overlap and inefficiency, leveraging on such comparative advantage by promoting regional building and regional integration, which is a prerequisite for sustainable development. Exploiting Africa's huge infrastructure gap, necessitating African policymakers in their pursuit of greater integration to advance their efforts towards promoting peace, security, and socio-economic development. Strengthening the capacity of institutional frameworks for intra-Africa trade, including improving coordination between the African Union and sub-regional bodies, and putting in place effective domestic mechanisms for monitoring the consistency of national policies with regional frameworks need to be put in place. Inclusive development where no one is left behind, especially the private sector and the informal trading networks, is the way to go. Let me turn to the Zim Fund. As you might be aware, the current 4-year mandate for the Zimbabwe Multi-Donor Trust Fund, Zim Fund, will expire in October 2019. Government notes that the implementation of certain improved activities is expected to go beyond the mandate of the current Zim Fund program. To this end, government is of the view that there is a need to extend the mandate of Zim Fund by a year to enable completion of the project activities. Therefore, government wants to acknowledge the AfDB for managing the Zim Fund. The Zim Fund has seen tremendous improvement in power, water, and sanitation projects, with state-of-the-art equipment being installed. This impact was witnessed by the outgoing Executive Director, Dr. Heinrich Haumab II, who visited during the first quarter of 2019. Let me turn to bank support. The government would like to reassure the bank of its commitment to project implementation is evidenced by the improved progress across all projects being supported under the African Development Fund, the ADF. We pledge our support to continue instituting measures that will improve delivery of development partners funded programs such as the following. Government has engaged development partners and took measures to clarify issues pertaining to separation of accounts and introduction of a floating exchange rate through the 2019 Monetary Policy Statement. This has enhanced access to foreign currency by our partners and enabled store value of their funds. And government is in the process of implementing the following initiatives: development cooperation policy and the procedures manual to guide engagement with development partners, as well as use of external support, and procurement and installation of an aid information management system, AIMS, to better manage and account for external resources has been initiated. To this end, we welcome valuable comments provided by the bank on our development cooperation policy. These interventions are reflective of the level of government commitment to improve performance of development partner-funded projects in order to maximize value for money. In addition, we've been working closely with the project implementing entities to ensure that project steering and technical committee meetings are held regularly, as stated in the protocols of agreement. Regular portfolio review meetings are held and reported challenges are acted upon timelessly. Government continues to review internal processes that delay movement of communication with the intention of eliminating bureaucracy. And quarterly, annual, and audit reports are being timelessly submitted. Meanwhile, government is awaiting for approval under ADF 14 of the following projects: the Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, Namibia interconnector project of $27.3 million US dollars. Regional power project, Zimbabwe Revenue Authority, ZIMRA, covering the acquisition of the tax management system. That's a $2 million US dollar project. And contribution to the feasibility study of the Batoka Gorge hydroelectric scheme, a contribution of $1.4 million US dollars. To this end, the government is urging the bank to expedite approval of the above pipeline projects, which are due to be tabled before the board in 2019. Let me turn to arrears clearance and debt restructuring. Government is committed and continues to engage various creditors for the arrears clearance, an initiative expected to open access to new development financing. It should be noted that the country's capacity to clear old arrears and meet obligations arising from the new financing hinges on the strength of the economy, which in turn requires implementation of the deep reforms under the TSP. To this end, government and the International Monetary Fund reached an informal and flexible instrument agreement, the Staff Monitored Program, the SNP, in April 2019 on macroeconomic policies and structural reforms that will underpin dialogue on the country's economic policies. The SNP will be monitored on a quarterly basis with the intention to implement a coherent set of policies that can facilitate a return to economic stability. Successful implementation of the SMP will assist in building a track record and facilitate Zimbabwe's re-engagement with the international community. A policy agenda to be monitored under the SMP is anchored on the TSP and emphasizes fiscal consolidation, the elimination of central bank financing of the fiscal deficit, and adoption of reforms that allow market forces to drive the effective functioning of foreign exchange and other financial markets. Furthermore, government has started paying token payments to the bank, as well as the World Bank and the European Investment Bank, indicating our commitment towards the debt arrears clearance process. In conclusion, let me conclude by applauding the call for the integration of our continent. It is through this initiative that we will be able to transform our economies and address challenges of unemployment, poverty, trade deficits, and value addition of our exports. We need to religiously pursue our integration strategy for the betterment of our economies and people. I thank you.